Welcome, gentle soul, to Driftwood stories, where moonlight falls on olive branches, and the wind carries songs older than memory. Tonight we follow the footsteps of a god not of war, nor thunder, but of joy, not the loud kind, not the kind that shouts to be heard, but the quiet, sacred kind, the kind that blooms like a vine through sorrow. This is the story of Dionysus, twice born, wild yet tender, who dances through silence and brings laughter to still places, a tale of celebration, not chaos, of music beneath the stars, of joy that heals instead of hides. So rest now, let your breath fall softly, let the vines curl around your dreams, and follow us to a forest, to a village, to a festival whispered into life by the god who knows that even tears can lead to dancing. Chapter 1. The Twice-Born. Before the songs were sung, before the vineyards climbed the hills, there was a spark, a child born of light and longing, of flame and falling stars. His name was Dionysus. But he was not born as others are. He was born twice. First, in the arms of a mortal woman named Semele, whose love for Zeus burned too brightly, and second, from the thigh of a god. Hidden in fire, wrapped in immortality, Semele had whispered her love into the sky, and Zeus, great and glittering, had answered. But the gods are not made for gentle love. And when Semele asked to see Zeus in his true form, she was given lightning, too much light, too much truth, and she was gone. But the child she carried, small, glowing, half-formed, was not forgotten. Zeus caught him in the moment between breath and ash, and stitched him into his own flesh, nestled beneath thunder and blood. And there, hidden within the storm, the child grew, until one day he was born again, not of a woman, but of a god. And from that strange second birth he came into the world laughing. The gods whispered, "He should not exist. He is too mortal, he is too wild, he is too soft." And so they hid him, not in marble halls or golden temples, but deep in the forests, where the trees listened and the rivers sang. There Dionysus was raised not by kings or priests, but by the gentle-hearted, by nymphs who bathed him in mountain springs, by dryads who showed him how to speak with vines, by a kind, half-silly old man named Silenus, who taught him to drink from gourds and laugh with his whole belly. They taught him the music of growing things, how sorrow could be sung through reeds, how a fig, when ripe, must fall, but always leaves sweetness behind. As he grew, Dionysus did not seek power. He wandered, he walked barefoot through meadows, he learned the names of mushrooms and shadows, he sat beside the dying and taught them songs that made them smile before they left. He did not hide his strangeness. He wore it like ivy. He could summon vines from the cracks of stone. He could make spring water taste like wine. And when he danced, even the most rigid heart swayed a little. Some feared him. Too free, they said, too soft, too much like the world before it was ordered. But others, those who had forgotten how to feel, began to feel again. In time, Dionysus came to understand that his gift was not just joy, it was transformation. The way grief becomes a story, the way a wound becomes a song, the way silence becomes music when one dares to hum. And so he set out, not to conquer, not to rule, but to walk, to find the places where joy had died. and gently, patiently bring it back. He wore no crown of gold, only ivy. He carried no sceptre, only a staff wrapped in vine. And wherever he went, the ground remembered how to bloom. The gods watched him with wary eyes. A god of wine? They scoffed. A god of laughter? But they did not understand. Wine to Dionysus was not for forgetting. It was for remembering with gentleness. Laughter was not a weapon, it was a bridge. He became beloved in quiet ways, by those who'd been silenced, by those whose tears had dried long ago, by the outcast, the weary, the dreamers. Not all shouted his name, but many felt him, like a warmth in the chest when music swells, like the feeling of dancing alone in candlelight. He did not need temples, he had stories, and the world began to whisper them like a song remembered from childhood. And then, one day, he found a village. Grey, still, silent. No smoke rose from chimneys, no songs drifted from windows. The trees had stopped blooming, the children walked without skipping, and the well in the centre of town tasted flat. Even when the water was clear, Dionysus stopped. He tilted his head, and he smiled, not in mischief, in recognition. "This," he whispered, "is where I am needed." And so the god of joy walked softly into the town that had forgotten how to sing. Chapter 2. The Silent Village. The village had no name, or rather, no one remembered it. It had once been known for honeyed plums, and songs sung at dusk, for ribbons in the trees, and laughter echoing from cobbled stones. But that was long ago. Now shutters stayed closed, children played in silence, fathers worked with furrowed brows, and mothers moved like ghosts, not because they were cruel, but because joy had left them. Dionysus walked through the empty market square. He passed a well with no bucket, a wine shop with locked shutters, a tavern where the hearth had long gone cold. No one noticed him at first. He looked like a traveller, cloak of green-grey wool, a wooden staff trailing vine, but the vines bloomed as he walked, soft and slow. A grape cluster shimmered where none had grown before. A violet crept up through a crack in the stone. Still the villagers did not meet his eyes. They nodded politely, distant, careful. They had forgotten how to welcome. He sat on the edge of the fountain and waited. Hours passed. The sun rose high and bent low again. At last a child approached. Mud on his knees, a broken toy clutched in hand. Dionysus smiled. "What happened to it?" he asked gently. The boy shrugged. "No one fixes things anymore." Dionysus looked at the toy, a wooden goat missing a wheel. He touched it lightly, and the wheel regrew. Not new, just whole again. The boy's eyes widened, but he did not run. He sat beside the stranger. "What's your name?" he asked. "I have many," Dionysus replied, "but you may call me friend." The boy came back the next day. And the day after that, others followed, quietly. A girl with a basket of stale bread, an old woman who hadn't spoken since winter, a dog with a limp and soft eyes. Dionysus spoke little. He listened, he hummed, he lit a small fire and shared roasted figs. He told stories, short ones, funny ones, old ones that felt like dreams. And little by little the silence shifted, not loudly, not all at once, but something began to stir. Then, one evening, He stood at the centre of the square. The villagers gathered, unsure why. The sun was setting slow and golden, and the breeze smelled faintly of time. Dionysus held up a simple mask, carved from bark, painted with gentle eyes and a smile that curved like a crescent moon. "I am inviting you," he said softly, "to a festival." They stared. "A festival? There will be no cost," he continued. "No rules, no speeches, just light and music and the chance to feel again. Come as you are, or come as someone else. Wear a mask if you like. Dance if your feet remember how." No one answered, not with words. But that night someone placed a candle in their window, and someone else left a ribbon on a tree, and an old man polished his drum. For the first time in 20 years. The next morning Dionysus walked through the village, his bare feet leaving petals in their path. He handed out masks made of leaves, of linen, of sunlight dried into form. Each one was different. Some looked like owls, some like foxes, some simply smiled, the kind of smile that made you want to smile back. He never asked them to wear them, but many did, not to hide, but to remember. By evening, lanterns had been hung on cords between houses. A slow drumbeat pulsed from the centre square. Bread had been baked, herbs steeped in honey, figs arranged like stars on platters. Dionysus stood in the square. He did not shout, he did not command, he simply began to hum. And the vines on the fountain opened, spilling blossoms into the air. A tambourine jingled, a flute sighed into song. Someone clapped, and someone else laughed. The festival had begun, but it was not wild, it was not loud, it was deep, warm, sacred. Not a celebration to forget the world, a celebration to remember it. To remember that joy can live in silence, that music can be quiet, that even those who have long closed their hearts can still feel them beating. At the edge of the square, the mayor of the town watched. He had not worn a mask, he had not spoken, but when a young girl tugged his hand, he let her lead him forward. He tapped a drum once, then again, and something inside him began to thaw. All the while Dionysus moved gently through the crowd. He drank from a shared cup. He spun with the dancers. He knelt to listen to a widow's story. He blessed the bread with a kiss on the crust. He did not need to be the centre. He was the flame that lit all the others. The moon rose, the vines climbed, the village forgot it had ever been silent. Chapter 3. The festival begins. The village square had never looked like this. Lanterns swayed like stars caught on strings, casting golden circles across the cobbles. A soft flute sang from the shadows, and the scent of baked fruit and sweet herbs danced on the wind. It was not loud, it was not wild, it was gentle. A festival made of sighs and smiles, of slow laughter and the rhythm of bare feet on old stones. Dionysus moved among them with quiet ease. His robe shimmered not with gold, but with dusk, deep purple and olive green. His hair held curls of ivy and moonlight, and his eyes, they sparkled, not like fire, but like wine held up to the sun. He wore no crown, he needed none. The people watched him, but he never stood apart. He danced with the bakers, he spun with the shepherds, he lifted a child onto his shoulders and made her laugh, until the stars themselves seemed to chime. The masks were many, some painted like animals, fox, owl, deer. Others showed faces of wonder, grief, delight. They were not worn to hide, but to transform. Each one offered permission to move differently, to speak truly, to become for one night something lighter, freer, braver. An old woman in a crow's mask took her first dance in years. A boy in a sun mask sang for the first time in his life. A couple who hadn't spoken in seasons held hands again. They said nothing. They just danced. No one shouted instructions. There were no signs, no rules, only music, rising and falling like breath. A single drumbeat kept the rhythm, slow, certain. It echoed through every footstep, every heartbeat, until the whole village moved like one body. Someone poured wine into a carved bowl and passed it to Dionysus. He lifted it to the sky. "Let this not be a drink of forgetting," he whispered, "but a drink of remembering," and he drank. Then offered it to the next, and the next. No one drank to escape. They drank to return, to themselves, to joy, to the pieces of them they thought were lost forever. A flute sang softly by the fountain. Dionysus joined it with a reed pipe, and together they wove a melody so tender that the olive trees leaned in to hear. Children fell asleep on soft cloaks by the fire. Mothers braided one another's hair. Fathers sat with their sons and spoke not of work, but of dreams. The moon climbed higher. Silver brushed the rooftops, and the vines bloomed deeper green. Small white flowers opened beside doorsteps. Figs fattened on the branch. Grapes appeared where none had grown. It was not magic. Or perhaps it was the kind of magic that comes when people remember how to feel. And still the music played, soft as memory, slow as forgiveness. One song faded. Another began. No one clapped, but many wept, not because they were sad, because they had not known. They could feel so much and still feel safe. At the centre of it all, Dionysus sat cross-legged beside the fire. He was not dancing now, he was watching. His hands rested lightly on his knees. His gaze moved gently from face to face. He was drinking in the joy, as one drinks rain after drought, not greedily, with reverence, as if each smile were a holy thing. Someone asked him quietly, "What is this festival for?" He looked at them and smiled. "For you." The night stretched on. Time softened. Moments curled like mist around the firelight. And the village, the once silent, shuttered village, breathed deeply for the first time in years. Dionysus rose, kissed the flute player's brow, and walked toward the edge of the square. He paused by the baker, who had not danced, but had watched with wide eyes. "Tomorrow," Dionysus whispered, "you'll bake bread that makes people weep." And he was gone, blending into the vines and shadow. The music played on. The festival did not end. It simply folded into the night, soft as a curtain drawn. And the village, wrapped in warmth and golden sleep, did not dream of kings, or gods, or glory. They dreamed of laughter, and fig trees, and drums. Chapter 4. The Dance of Memory. By morning, the music had quieted, but it had not stopped. It hummed in the cobblestones. It stirred in the fabric left behind on clotheslines. It rustled through the trees that now bore grapes in full bloom. The village awoke, not groggy, but clear, as if they had washed their souls. In a warm river beneath starlight, children skipped again. Old friends met eyes they had avoided for seasons. A baker kneaded dough while humming a tune he hadn't sung since he was a boy, but deeper than joy. Something else lingered, something quieter, memory. That evening, without summons or signal, the villagers gathered again. No one said, "Shall we go?" Their feet simply knew where to walk. Masks were worn once more, some old, some new, some painted with smiles, others with tears, because tonight was not just for dancing, tonight was for remembering. Dionysus returned just as the first lantern was lit. He carried no wine, no music, only a small worn satchel. He placed it at the foot of the fountain and opened it. Inside were scrolls, old parchment, faded ink, names. "These are your stories," he said. "Not ones I tell, but ones you have lived." And so the villagers took turns. Each took a scroll. Each opened something old. Some found lullabies sung by mothers now gone. Some found the scent of the sea where they had once dreamed of sailing. Some found the face of a friend lost to illness or time or silence. They did not read the scrolls aloud. They held them, cried softly, closed them again, and then they danced. Not in twirls or leaps, but in circles, slow, winding movements, steps taken not to impress, but to release. Hands brushed, eyes met, some danced alone, but no one was lonely, because in that moment every movement said, "I remember, I honour, I forgive." Dionysus danced too, not at the centre. He moved through the edge of the circle, bare feet whispering against the ground. Where someone stumbled, he offered a hand. Where someone wept, he did not speak. He simply danced beside them. The mayor danced with the seamstress, whose husband had never returned from war. They did not speak, but their hands held tightly, and their steps found one another. Two children danced in mismatched sandals. One wore a mask shaped like a sun, the other a weeping willow. They spun until they fell into each other's arms, laughing. Even the silent corners of the village began to hum. A stone bench, once used only for mourning, now held a candle and a basket of warm bread. A doorway, long sealed, was opened, and a grandmother's voice called out to passing joy. Dionysus paused by the well. He touched the stone, and it glowed faintly. Water rose to the surface, clearer than ever before. He dipped a cup and tasted it. It was cold and sweet, and tinged with the quietest flavour of crushed grapes. Not enough to intoxicate, just enough to awaken. The villagers came, one by one, to drink, not for thirst, for blessing, for remembrance. Someone began to hum. A soft melody, barely more than breath. Others joined in. Soon a song emerged, not one anyone had taught them, but one they all somehow knew. It rose on the breeze and danced with the flames of the lanterns. It spoke of joy that lives alongside grief, of love that changes shape but never leaves, of vines that climb where once only stone stood. And as the song reached its peak, the sky opened slightly, not with rain, with light. Starlight poured gently between clouds, shimmering like dust across the village. The vines on every home bloomed with white flowers. The ivy on the roofs curled into heart-shaped leaves. And the people, faces lifted, sang as if their hearts were pouring light into the sky. Dionysus stood still. A single tear slid down his cheek, not of sorrow, but of fulfillment. This was why he wandered, not to be worshipped, but to see people remember themselves, to see joy, not as a noise, but as a return. Later that night, as the village grew quiet again, he sat by the fountain. One child remained awake. She came to him with a question. "Will the joy stay?" she whispered. Dionysus smiled. "It is yours now. But how do we keep it?" He leaned close. By remembering, by sharing, by letting it grow where it's needed most. He tucked a tiny vine into her palm. It shimmered faintly. "Plant this in your heart. Water it with stories. Dance with it when the sky grows quiet." The girl nodded. She understood. Chapter 5. Joy Left Behind. The morning rose softly, as if it, too, had danced the night before. Mist clung to the edges of rooftops. Lanterns still swung gently in the breeze. Vines, heavy with dew, curled around every post and fence. But the village did not stir with the urgency of routine. It woke like a memory, slow, golden, and full of breath. The baker opened his shutters, and the smell of warm fig bread spilled into the street. The seamstress set out a small table and began to mend a coat, humming a tune no one had heard in years. Two children chased one another barefoot through the square. Faces flushed with joy, feet finding the rhythm of the stones. The mayor stood by the well, ladling out cups of water, as though offering communion, and every so often someone would pause, touch a vine, and smile. But Dionysus was nowhere to be found. His footprints had vanished with the dew. His satchel was gone. Even his staff had curled back into the forest earth. Yet he was not forgotten. In the centre of the square, a small tree had grown overnight. Not tall, no more than a boy's height, but full of leaves shaped like hearts, and fruit that shimmered silver in the morning sun. Beneath it lay a scroll, tied with ivy. The villagers gathered around it. No one rushed to open it. At last, the oldest among them stepped forward, a woman who had not danced in decades, until last night. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady as she read, "Joy is not noise. It is not escape. It is not always bright. Joy is a return to the self, to others, to breath. Let it grow. Let it be sacred. And when you are ready, share it." She rolled the scroll closed and placed it beneath the roots of the tree. That day no one worked. There was no need. People sat together, spoke softly, remembered out loud. They lit candles in windows and poured small cups of water onto their doorsteps as offerings to the joy that had come and stayed. The boy with the wooden goat toy gave it to another child, saying only, "He fixed it for me. Now I give it to you." The girl with the vine in her palm planted it in her garden. It bloomed within minutes, and though Dionysus had vanished from sight, he had not truly left. Because joy, once awakened, cannot be banished. It rests in the wood grain of doors now opened. It stirs in the pots of herbs now stirred with song. It lingers in the corners of rooms, where music might one day return. Far beyond the hills, deep in the folds of the wild, Dionysus walked again. He did not look back. He did not need to. He knew. And as he walked, His staff gently tapped the earth, and where it touched, a blossom unfurled, a laugh echoed, a drumbeat stirred, because joy, once carried, always finds the next place to bloom. Sleep now, dear listener. May your dreams be wrapped in ribbons, your silence filled with music, and your heart, like a vine, open to light. The God of joy walks gently, and he has been here.